I know it's a week already, but celebrating women should not just be one day anyway, right? So, good morning and welcome to Hangout at Dome with Her World. Today, my guests are the amazing women I have here. I have Choo, who is our, let me get it right. I always try to get it right. Youth Ambassador for the National Cancer Society. She also is a has a PhD in developmental psychology. See,
wow, thanks.
I Google. I know. I Google and went to her Instagram. So yeah. And on my far right, I have Sarah Lian. Sarah Lian has like TV, MC, host. But I think what I want to add is that I know you have the super retreat and I've heard really good things about it, and she is a speaker and like a coach on the retreat. So that should be on her thingy also. And we have Deborah Henry. Deborah Henry is also the co-founder of the Fuji School. Amazing women who are doing, not even are doing, because they are still doing it. So today we want to talk about creating more women leaders and how do we support them in that. I mean, the idea of women supporting women. I know a lot of people are saying we shouldn't have to even say that, you know, it should just be given. Women should support women. But come on, let's get real, right? Do women really like always? No. Not necessarily. I don't know. I mean, I know some women who say they are very supportive, but
behind the scenes?
Not just behind the scenes, but I think when you feel a little bit insecure, then you will take a step back. Not say that you won't support, but maybe you're not going to be as in agreement with that person, perhaps. So, shall I just start with the first question?
Yeah.
Everyone looks so serious. It's Friday. We're just waiting. Okay. Yeah, we can all just talk and feel free to ask each other questions. You know, do you believe that women need to, you know, be more supportive of other women? I mean, or should it be like equal, like, you know, be supportive of men and women equally, or do we need to give women a little bit more, you know, of a support?
Well, I think for me it's coming from a place, I mean, I do think unfortunately we need to talk about it because it's not something that's been, I think people have not been conscious about it. But I think before that it needs to come from a place where all of us, men and women, need to, whether it's in the workplace or at home or in social circles, it's where do you come from at the end of the day, right? And is your goal to try to understand someone? Is your goal to try to be there for someone, to put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand what they're going through, where they're coming from? And I think if you take that position, it leads to understanding someone else's challenges or issues better, and you're able to achieve your goals better. So I mean, if I were to talk about the corporate sector, which I've never worked in, so but from stories I hear, it's a lot of people who, you know, we always talk about the boys club, and you know, men are like the buddies. They pull each other up. They you know, I see it.
Somebody mentioned yesterday bro code.
Well, yeah, perhaps the bro code, but I see it with my own eyes. Like, somehow men will come together and they'll end up doing these business deals and they'll make it work, and you're like, what? Huh? How did you even? And they'll do it in industries that neither of them have the expertise, but they reach out to contacts. They say, oh, I have a friend, when they don't even have a friend. Do you know what I mean? They just have, they have this crazy ability to just kind of like rally together. And it's not that we don't have that ability, but we've just never done it, and maybe not comfortable doing it. So I do think it needs to be, I do think women need to be able to be there for each other more. And maybe historically there were so few seats at the table for women that it became competition between women.
Yes.
And the nature of just, you know, being a little bit catty and judging the superficialness and focusing on that. So it needs to be something that women talk about, and actually act out.
You know, when you mentioned that whole superficial thing and being catty, you know, I think women even accepting that they are a certain way is very hard for women. Like, you know, when you puji a woman, like, oh, you look so beautiful. Tak adalah. I mean, like,
I think on that level, there are many different levels in that.
Yeah.
I think one is a cultural aspect, one is, you know, parents teaching us to be humble. But I wanted to add on to that there's a scarcity mindset when it comes to success. And the insecurity breeds when we, us women, are in this patriarchal society. And like Deb said, you are trying to find your seat at the table, and so there's another girl, so you feel challenged. And that shouldn't be the case, you know? Why is it, and I read this book recently, by Miki Agrawal, and she said, why is it that we always hear about female rappers, like 1 or 2 female rappers having beef, and there's like 20,000 male rappers? Why is that? Yeah,
together.
exactly. You know, so why is that we have that mindset? Or I remember watching Tyra's show, and she was going to do her big confrontation with Naomi Campbell.
Yeah.
And then she was saying, why is it that there can only be 2 black models? You know, how have we come into this place where we feel like if one person succeeds, that no one else can? Why do we not have that possibility mindset, you know?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, okay. I just feel that women also, the other thing is that they judge women first. They don't like, they have the thing like, okay, when I see that woman, although I think she's beautiful, and that insecurity then kicks in because of the competitiveness, right? So when I talk about, I mean, like with the hashtag balance for better, I wholeheartedly believe that women should support women more, but the first thing that women should do is not judge other women like first when you first meet that women. I think a lot of women do that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, guilty as charged, you know. It took me a long... Yeah. No, I mean, come on, I'm real. I admit, you know, guilty as charged, but it's taken me a long time to actually have the discipline to not, you know, to if I'm judging here, to like, whoa, take a step back. Why did you think that? You know, what is it that's making you? As you used the word earlier when we are triggered? You know, what triggered that? You know, and then, you know, when you are able to notice that you're doing it, then you sort of like catch yourself and then you break the habit. But I think it's
like ingrained because of this competitiveness.
yeah, and it becomes a habit. Like,
Yeah.
once you do it so often, you
Do
know,
it without thinking about it, which is why we need to start talking and thinking
Yeah.
about it, right?
Yeah. And just, you know, and being real with ourselves to say that, yes, we do it. So now how do we break the cycle of not doing it?
My husband was actually telling me, he's like, I realize women, they're more critical of women rather than men.
Of course.
He's like, men don't do that.
You see them as threats.
Yeah.
But I mean, for example, take this. Sarah and I, we're in exactly the same industry, exactly the same jobs. Like, I could be sitting here with my enemy today. Do you know what I mean? And because essentially we could be competitors, right? And especially in this industry, a lot of people don't understand. Like, you know, your name's on the list. The client's like, do I want her? Do I want her? This one has this. That one has that. And you become like
every time I have to do that, you know.
But it's okay. I mean,
we have everyone.
no, but it's okay. But then
but
it's like,
it's
for us, it's
fine.
fine. And we can sit here and we can put that aside, that's a job, it's work. I'm not going to be, why would I sacrifice a friendship with a person like this over what? Because she got this job over me, and I can allow that to become issue, a threat, but I don't. So in our industry, it's particularly, I find interesting because we're all in the same boat, literally. And but you
All
still
our
have to-
names are all on that list. It doesn't matter who you're from or where you're from, but all your names are there, and the client is just gonna pick one of them.
Yeah.
And you have no control over it. You can't be upset. I took this job over you. That doesn't exist, you know, and it's not our fault, really.
Yeah, so you got to force yourself to like, you got to rise, step back, rise above those feelings when you feel that sense of envy or jealousy or it should have been me. You got to rise, fight through those feelings because you know it's not coming from a positive
Fight
place.
it before you do something stupid, like, you know, like, you know, comment on social media or something like that. Right. You know, sometimes people, just like, you know, they forget and then they take it out like that. Coming back to women leaders. So, okay, riding on that, what we're talking, right? As much as women, we do have a growing number of empowered women. You know, like, you know, I would say that most of us here are empowered. A lot of, you know, and the women that I was with yesterday also were very empowered, and we were talking about the idea that, yes, everyone in the room who was empowered understood the need for this, you know, change of mindset, embracing, blah, blah, blah. But what about out there in the rural areas, you know, who may not buy into this. I mean, you know, I shouldn't even say buy into this idea, but they don't live the idea what we're talking about. They are not. They don't have access of. They've not seen women in holding really leadership positions. So, do you feel that we need to create women leaders, more of them, so that we can infiltrate and get to the other women? Like, how does? Yeah.
Sorry, you can go.
Go ahead.
I just feel that in this case, I feel that education is very important to reach out to the people, the children, or I mean the girls in the rural area. Without the education, the empowerment, it's very hard to get there. I feel that first comes education, and then after that, when they learn, they understand, and they read, then they see that, hey, there are actually women out there doing great things, not just holding one role.
Because our buku sejarah, so not a lot of mention.
No, I mean, I think education is one aspect, but it's really changing the mindset.
Yeah.
I saw a documentary about period.
Oh yeah, you watched it?
Yeah, I watched it. So it basically it was women creating low-cost pads for other women, and this whole idea of our feminine cycles and our periods that happen to everyone, and if without education they don't know what's going on. But they managed to create a small little like cottage industry for themselves to create and to sell, and women were empowered right away like that. And I think even just understanding what periods are, or understanding what happens to a woman's body, allows people to also see the importance of it versus people that are kept behind and kept out of the dark.
Yeah, and following on from that, it's like you said, use the word infiltrate earlier, right? And I think it's actually not about that. It's about people from within their own communities need to be the ones, and that obviously comes back to education. It comes back to having access and being informed, so you can make informed decisions for yourself, right? So it is for us to go in and they're going to be like, who are you? What do you want? Like, you don't know us, and you're on two different levels. So it needs to be people from within. And then secondly, it's also for different communities all across the world, not just in Malaysia. The reality is there are millions of girls and women who are still disempowered, oppressed, discriminated against all over the world. So if you want to talk about the battle being won, maybe for us we feel like, yeah, okay, nothing's wrong with our life, but that's not the reality. And that's where you need to see change happening. And I mean that's where, you know, it's a matter of I think the change, like you said, mindset. It's people need to experience it. So in my experience with Fuji School, if our school stood there and told the community, you need to do this with your children, you can't do this, you think it's going to have an impact? No way. I'd be like 100 before anything changes. But it's when, you know what flips the switch for them? It's when the kid comes home from school having learnt better English, can now take the mum to the hospital or to the and translate. So now the mum goes, wow, there is value in this. I see the value. I'm experiencing firsthand the value. And then the mum's like, okay, I like the system. Then the mum is 100% in. Then you have the buy-in, so to speak. And then they get it. But you have to experience it and feel what it means. Because empowerment, we use all this jargon all the time. Even half the time, I don't even know what all the balance for better. What on earth does that even mean? What is balance for better? Like, I have to sit here and actually think about like balance, and then the ladies like that. I'm like, balance for like what? You know?
Men and women, or it's like
or is it always going to come back? Yeah, and is it always going to come back to this conversation of women being asked this question of how do you juggle? How do you balance? Men never get asked that, but women do. Like, how do you balance your life? And because you got to do this and you got to do that. So how do you balance it?
So okay.
Someone should ask a man that. How do you balance being a dad, and what do you do? Like,
no, they cannot answer. They cannot answer. I don't know lah.
And many men out there probably do it, but they probably never think about it. Like, men just do stuff. They don't like sit there and analyze.
Yeah, I mean, you don't go to a boy like, when do you want to get married? And like, who do you think your wife is going to be? And, you know, and how many kids do you want? Like, we don't ask them that. So why is that? What is the training?
I asked myself.
That's good. I'm glad you do.
I asked myself.
How does he respond?
No, he says that, you know, how many kids he's answered me, how many kids he wants, and, you know, I've asked him like, oh, what sort of gender kids do you want? And he likes the idea of having a son and a daughter. I said, why do you think that? He said, because if you have because he looked at his relationship with his sister, and he said, like, you know, having a sister taught him how to talk to girls.
Oh, that's really smart.
So, win. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, yes. Yay. So, okay. one of the things that that I always look when we talk about women leaders, right? Even women leaders get discriminated by the other women within me. Okay, yes, we talk about competitiveness, right? But you know, making certain decisions as a woman leader, I've seen certain women leaders who get told off if they make certain decisions about other women's staff, right? Like I mean, I've spoken about this before, you know. I do worry when a staff says she's pregnant. I know I should not question that. I was a pregnant working mom, you know, I survived it. But then again, I know that who I am is not everybody else. So, you know, and I can't expect that person to
Be like you.
exactly.
I get it.
And I don't mean it in a bad way, you know, it's just that I know there is always a solution to anything, that we can find a solution. But at the back of my head, I'll still have like,
No, I mean, I run a company with women, for women, and do now projects, you know, for other women, right? And so I'm always surrounded by women, and you're right. I had a staff that was, that told me she was pregnant. And then it made me think, I'm like, okay, so that means I really got to cough up some money for her not doing work, you know? And that was, as a small business owner, that's something you think about. Or I had another girl that said, oh, I just broke up. And I remember when I went through my breakup, I was like, well, I still did work, so I don't think it should affect you. You know what I mean? And it's not the same, yeah. And so sometimes I think as women leaders, you just have to try to be a bit more compassionate in the situation and see what needs to be heard. Because I find that if I have a staff that's unhappy, and if she's bottling it up inside, her productivity levels are going to go down, you know? But unless I address it and make sure that she feels heard and she is seen, only then I feel that, okay, you know, once we've addressed it, then she feels safe to be able to speak to me and safe to be able to be like, okay, well, I'm feeling like this right now, am I able to do this? And then we can work things out. But I think if you're so combative and so set on your ways, then I think you're just not being a good boss, period, whether you're a woman or whether you have, you know, women under you.
So how would you address that, say, at a much bigger level, like a, you know, a global company? You know, you need to get things done ASAP. How does that? I wonder how. I mean, I don't know. I wonder how that transitions, because I hear so many stories in the MNCs, and you hear stories of women bosses, like, you know, like flying in, flying out, and just being, everyone hates everyone, and I'm like, gosh, this sounds like a very productive, positive environment to work in.
I mean, I think really it's about empowering your staff. It's about allowing your staff to grow, because I think at the end of the day, a great leader is not someone that builds a whole bunch of followers, is someone that builds more leaders. So you're able to really, you know, get out of it.
I definitely agree with her on that. And I think, you know, one thing that we forget as you know, if you are all women leaders out there, it's fine to show your vulnerable side. I think, you know, you can't always be the one like is so, you know, in control, and because, hello, we are women, okay? We're very emotional. Reality check, right? We're emotional, we do feel ups and downs, we do have issues at home, we probably, like if you have a newborn at home, you two do not have enough sleep or something like that. So I think it's okay to sort of show that you need the assistance and the support. I will admit, recently, last year, I had a bit of an emotional issue, but you know, my openness to my writers, my team, built a better relationship between us. You know, because I then knew, hey, they've got my back. I don't have to, you know, I don't have to constantly worry like, oh my God, what if I crack? If I crack, are they going to leave me? You know, then I realized like, hey, if we open the channels of communication and I was honest with them, and it didn't affect their work, and neither did it affect my work, because we were there to sort of.
And also, if you build a relationship on love versus fear, right? If a lot of bosses feel like, especially women, you need to have a sense of assertiveness, you know, and like, and make sure she's scared of me, you know, and you hear that and you're like, why does that need to happen? You know, why do you need to instill fear in that relationship when you really say, listen, I want you to do well, I want you to be amazing.
Yeah, I always tell them that, you know, if you become an editor, I need you to be better than me, because that is testament to how I have, you know, come on.
Yeah, but you don't come from a place of that because you don't feel threatened. You don't feel fear. A lot of not many other people. How many other people would have that same approach where they can actually say, I want you to be better than me.
Because, you know, oh, that will be credit to me if you are better than me. It's like, ooh, wow.
But people have, because of their sense of insecurity, they think like, oh no, she's just out to get my job, or she's out to get this, and they don't see it on the other side. And I think if we're able to shift that and show people that you can be a strong woman, you can have these things, and have a lot of people still admire you, want to be with you, and for you to say, I'm here to help you accelerate and for you to be a better person.
Which is why I think you need to have men need to definitely be part of that conversation, because if you just have a bunch of women suddenly taking this approach in a company, it's not, I don't imagine that being successful without actually seeing everyone actually play a role. And then secondly, for me, what I notice in Malaysia is that in terms of in business and in a lot of different aspects of life, there's a very top-down approach. And it's this thing of like, and I don't know if that cuts across gender, but it is top down, where you listen to your boss, you don't jump until he says jump, and then you say how far, and do you know what I mean?
Eastern. I think it's Asian.
Yeah.
Very Eastern.
It's very top down, and so when you have that as well, then this is authority that the bosses and leaders have, and whether you're a man or woman, and then the woman sometimes, because she knows she's one of few in that position, tends to become more fierce about it. But I've been speaking at a lot of companies lately, and I see the bosses, and I sort of observe the men and women, and seem to have a very relaxed, very chilled. They talk about issues that said, you know, and I see that, and that's really positive to see, because if all of you are sitting and chatting about this, you're saying it's important, and I think that dialogue session needs to happen before. Right?
I think just to add another thing to it is that policy. So, you know, both you and I talked about, oh my goodness, someone's pregnant. Oh, how are we going to deal with this, right? And it's unfair, because you know what, the responsibility has been put on the woman, right? Oh, but we give you flexible hours. Oh, but we give you this. Or why don't you give them to the men too? Because the women have to sort out their work plus look after the kid. Why can't you shift that with that? Share responsibilities. I mean, I know I'm from Canada, but and in Canada they have maternal and paternal leave, and it's shared. And so what they found is that women are less worried about their jobs, they have a sense of job security, and men are also able to be a part of their child's upbringing. Because what happens is that you have 1 year of mat leave that's shared between the man and the woman, and you should show proof to your organization.
We're asking for policy change.
No, but imagine that. Right? No, but imagine that a man is told, not just from family, but from actual law, that it is not required for you to take time off work to spend time with your newborn. Like, how like bizarre. No wonder the men don't hold the baby, don't know how to handle anything. The system tells them this.
Correct. So I mean, unless there's a shift that will support our mindset.
Father to bring a baby to Parliament in Malaysia, man.
Absolutely. Why is that not happening? You know, why do they not bear that responsibility? And in Canada, I think what they saw was that the men felt like, that's not fair that my wife gets to be with my child for 6 months and I don't. You know? And so now that shift has happened, and say, you know, you want to give women flexible working times, give them to men too. If they've got kids to look after, why put that on the women? Why are you?
That's one of the I would say easiest, but that's one of like the biggest nationwide sign you can say to tell men and to show men that we want you to in this role, and it also cuts it challenges patriarchy.
It's like, you know, in Canada they want it, right?
Yeah, but that's also come. You got to look at history and culture and so much.
I mean, on top of it too. I mean, we're women in entertainment, but it's the story of how we tell this in our media, in our movies, in our entertainment. Like,
have you seen some of the stuff on television?
Yeah. I mean, there's still like a guy that slaps a woman.
Deborah, you might have a heart attack, you know.
There's a lot of. I mean, we have the local dramas that cater to the masses, and there's still the man like hits the woman, or there's some rape scene, or you know, I mean, but they're no longer relevant. And I mean, I'm one of the girls that I manage, Corinne. She's coming out with her show on View Originals about Devoted, and there are strong women in there, and she's also on the panel talking about how there needs to be a change or a shift for roles in women.
Yes.
You know?
Agree.
And the way we tell these stories, actresses should be like, no, I'm not going to play that. I'm not going to get into that anymore, you know?
I do feel like some actresses are taking that step, but not all will dare do it because at the end of the day, you need to pay bills. Yeah. So, TV stations, time to. I'm attacking like everyone. I'm like, I'm like, yes, come on.
Yeah, but look at India. India has like Bollywood, a multi-billion-dollar film industry. Look at the kind of movies that Sonam Kapoor does.
Traditional, right?
I mean, of course, it's a huge industry, but the main actors, they're coming up and what was the movie Padman? They're talking about, because in India, TV is like revered, it's like, there's like a god, right? So they knew that they understand the value of this medium to reach out to the populations, to the masses. And you see the shift. I mean, of course, there's still the olden day movies that you're like, huh, what? But there's a massive swing now, and all the movies that people are writing, the script, the content, the storyline, the messaging, and there's so many actresses. Yeah. Yeah, and they're saying, I want to challenge. I want to be remembered for doing movies and taking on roles that were risky or that challenged the norm and the status quo.
I think I need to add on one thing that women hardly do. We never ask for help. That's a huge thing. I think we women have to ask for help and understand that it's not a weakness. Everyone needs help. I mean, this is through my experience with being sick. I was also having a business, and I mean, now thank God it's still alive. When I was sick, I actually had to let go of a lot of staff. And the last one, I hope she's watching this, she has been really loyal to me. And I actually teared in front of her because I didn't know how to tell her. I didn't tell anyone I was sick. So I actually said, I'm sick. And I'm not sure whether we can continue this because I don't know even whether I can pull through the next 6 months, like being like well enough to go for meetings. I told her that, and then I think I teared in front of her, and then she teared, and we were just staring at each other, and then she said, "Now mind, I'll help you." That's what she said, and I actually felt a weight lifted off my shoulder. Like, okay, so I am vulnerable, and I showed my weakness when she actually came forth and said, I would help you. And she didn't say like, I'm going to leave because I don't believe in you anymore. I mean,
But you see, that because you had to be, I don't know why it takes so much courage for women to ask for help. I mean, it becomes like a brave thing, that you do rather than yeah, I know, right? I tell you, like, I have to psych myself up sometimes. Like, you can do this, you can ask this question, you can ask, it takes so much, But then I realized, what have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? The person said, I don't want to help you. Okay lah. So, move on, I'm sure if, you do have other people that are going to be supportive of you. And it's fine if this one person doesn't want to help. So, okay. This one I was talking about also briefly just now, before we started the show. I was telling them about my experience, how I felt disagreement with someone that I was watching on a panel. So then again I thought to myself, because I caught myself having this sort of like, oh my God, what is she trying to say sort of moment, right? And then I realized, like, I think being supportive, women supporting other women also mean being able to agree to disagree. And that's a sign of support, I think.
Yeah, and I think we spoke about this on the phone the other day. We talk about women like fighting for our rights and all of this, but then we come, unfortunately, with all these expectations and biases on what that needs to look like. Yeah. Like if a woman does not look like this, and do this, that means she's not taking advantage, she's not being, she's not playing the role, she's not being the empowered 21st century woman, and that's not a good thing. But and so for me, what I remind myself about all the time is what we fight for. When you talk about feminism, when you talk about the rally, you talk about its equal access and opportunity that we want everyone to enjoy. But ultimately, it comes down to individuals being able to make choices in their life. Yes. To me, informed, you're given access to education, so you have the ability to make informed decisions and choices. That means you choose to get married, you choose not to get married, you choose to pursue a degree, you choose to stay at home, to leave the workforce, to stay at home and take care of your kids. It's your choice.
And it's okay.
And it's okay.
You don't have to feel lesser or, you know, or
And other
just-
women shouldn't judge.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard for this other women shouldn't judge thing. I think because of, I don't know, yeah, you know, because culture, habit, bad habit. But I do feel that I read this book. I'm quite a self-help book junkie, and I read this book. I can't remember whether it was Seed of the Soul or the one before that, because I read books. But it said that if you can just catch your thought before you take action, therefore you already change your mindset, you know. Because sometimes we just think of something and then we react instantly, and then, you know, and then we just ride this wave. And then by the time, oh yeah, and then you're like, oh, I'm on it. And then suddenly you feel like, oh yes, I'm the empowered one. Actually, maybe, you know, even that is hard to say, because there are days that you are going to be down, and it's okay for you to be down. You can't always feel like just because I'm empowered, I have to be up and ready and, you know, on all the time. You have to be able to accept that you are empowered to be down sometimes, and it's okay, because tomorrow, you know, will be another day. Or if you really are empowered, doesn't mean you can't ask for help. Like, seriously,
Exactly.
you know.
I think a lot of us think we are superwoman all the time, and that's what we should portray as a 21st century empowered woman. I feel, don't you?
I mean, I find that like there's always that saying, because women juggle so many things, that you can have it all. And like, what is all? Like, what? To me, all is like watching the Kardashians in my underwear eating ice cream. That is all to me. If I could do that every day of my life, I think I've had it all. Trust me, I could go on. But I think it's the attitude or the assumption that you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to channel all those things. And also, like, hitting back to what Deborah said, and our perceived bias of what a feminist looks like. And I think back about when Emma Watson came out and she talked about how she was a feminist, and a lot of people didn't understand it. And then she did a photo shoot where she was sort of like naked, and they said it totally undermines everything you say. And to me, I'm like, if she wants to take a picture naked, how does that challenge her ideals of still wanting equal rights and, you know, for you know, rights and freedoms and access to, you know, the same salary and things like that for women? And I was like, if that's a personal art thing, you
and
know.
that goes back to the point where rape, right? Where, oh, you deserve to be raped because you were dressed like
Yes.
that. You know, that takes it to a whole deeper level of no.
Oh, you were
that's-
dressed sexy, so you are asking for it.
Yeah.
Or like, oh yeah, we know she's a party girl, so it was gonna happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
Like, what are the kind of thoughts that we have? I mean, it's sad. No one asked to be raped. You could be walking down the street and something like that could happen to you, or you could be at a club and something could happen to
So
you.
it shouldn't be put on the victim. It should be put on the perpetrator. Yeah. And they should be the ones who are like, you know. So it's an interesting, but like challenging feminism. What does it mean? And it means different things to different women. But ultimately, it's, if you believe in equal access and opportunity for the world, then everyone should be a feminist. And if you're a male, you've got a mother, you've got a grandmother. So don't you want everyone? Yeah. Shouldn't everyone have that basic right?
Yeah.
So that's something that, you know, that I've realized, that we are a society of labels.
Stereotypical.
We,
Yeah.
you know, everything is a label, right? Like, even, that's why you say we question feminism, because why? Somebody created the word feminism, therefore put a label on the action, right?
When I was a lot younger and in university, you know, feminism was such a huge and challenging word because it was on so many different levels, right? You would hear about these white women who would leave their kids with their, you know, nannies, and then they're like, oh, how are you really being a feminist if you have a nanny that you're treating or that is working at this level? And I think the labels will never escape us. I mean, it's just easy to put everyone in a box and call it something.
I think it's consciousness and awakening.
Yes.
We need to reach a point where in this world we'll exist, but
At the same time, I say consciousness, awakening, being enlightened. I mean, you know, the trendy word is woke, you know. But woke also sometimes get people a bit too sensitive, I feel. Yeah. You know, people become a little bit too...
like they can't take a joke type.
Actually, the other day I wanted to share, there was a guy that sent me an email and he wanted to do a special on me about Valentine's, and I was like, I don't think I'm really spending it in any special way. He's like, no, it's okay, I'm going to send you a few questions. Then as he gets down to a couple more questions, the third one was, now that the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement has come about, do you think seduction is dead? And I was like, unless you equate seduction to like a one-sided rape story, I mean, I really don't and I was like, I really don't think you should ask me that question, because if you do, I would want you to print my entire answer, and I would not feel comfortable if you extracted this, because I don't even think the question you're asking is even correct, right? And it's just the way we look at things and the way we see things that I was just like, oh my God, is this actually happening?
So, I mean, you know, one, I always have this issue. I mean, like, lately I have this issue about labels and stuff like that. And when you talk about getting the education to the girls, right? And then the girls go back and sort of, you know, enlighten the rest and the community. But now I'm going to pick on education pula. But, you know, but recently my daughter came home. I say I'm always picking on someone. But I mean it in the best intention, okay? Yeah. So my daughter came home and she said, you know, I got really upset with this speaker that came to the school. I said, why? What was this speaker talking about? Oh, this speaker, I thought it was very disrespectful that he was showing pictures of people's families in accidents. I said, what was the purpose? He said, because he wanted us to be thankful and grateful for our parents and not be rude to our parents. You know, see some people lose their family in accidents, you know. So you must remember, what if you suddenly lose your...
That's a way to hit
You know?
a nail.
Yeah, and then he showed them pictures of a mother having a cesarean section or something, and you know, see what mothers have to go through for their child. This is the same. She's 11.
What? That's the best way to. So it's like almost fear of loss. It's like I'm gonna make you fear something in order to appreciate it.
So this has happened in our education system.
Please do not go into it. I've had a nationwide outrage moment a couple years ago. I could go into it for hours.
You know, so when you look at, you know, but you know, and my daughter's like, you know, mommy, the weirdest thing though, everyone started crying, but I didn't.
I think your daughter is like, yeah, she's got, because she has you in her life. She's woke. She's switched on.
She was like, I couldn't cry. I don't know. Was I supposed to cry? I said, no, you're not supposed to cry. I said, because the last thing I want is for someone to instill fear in you, you know, to love your parents. I said, you shouldn't be scared, so then you love your parents. You should just love your parents because you love your
Like,
parents.
I could think of 100 other ways that he could have tackled it rather than showing pictures of death.
I haven't picked this bone with the school yet, so maybe I will, yeah. So this whole, you know, this whole idea of what goes into education as well, I think is such a big thing.
I mean, the kids, if you look at their entire day, a significant portion of it is in school. And your school is not teaching you the right things, not just about academics, but how to communicate with someone, how to flag when something is going wrong. I mean, I think if you don't have those right things that are happening in the kids' school, it becomes a disadvantage to them, because you as a parent can only do so much, because they are getting this training, or I mean this education for a significant part of their life.
I do feel that majority of pengetua are women, you know. From what I've, but you know, from what I see, so it's quite like yeah, education.
Societies. If you want to change your society, you got it. It starts with school.
You would think that this woman. Sorry, now I also get emotional.
Maybe she wasn't aware of this.
No,
They're just a cog in the
People
system.
just don't think. They don't. It doesn't.
So when I had my national outcry of like, what, you know, and it was about a friend's daughter who some exam had said point the name to the religion, and then it started to outline, David goes to church and Muhammad goes to the mosque. And I was just like, what is this? And I was totally triggered. And then I had a teacher that really went out on me, and she said, you are not a parent, you shouldn't be questioning it. I'm a teacher, so therefore I know. And then I said, this is really like sad, because you don't even see the layers of bias that you're teaching these kids. So at primary 1, you're teaching them what mosque they go to. At primary 2, do you tell them what kind of car they're going to drive? Primary 3, do you tell them what kind of neighborhood they're going to live in? Because we kind of know. And that's not what you should be teaching these children. And so sometimes these teachers, and I don't blame them, and people were saying, I go to that school, Sarah, how dare you outrage? And I said, listen, I'm not pointing fingers at any specific person. They were probably just doing their job. But you have to question what that job is and what that means to you, and how that person that they are raising is going to relate back to you in society. This kid could be managing my bank transaction and may have already a built-in bias because of the system. So you have to question the system.
Name of that person, since they're taught in school that
Yeah, they had a name. They had David goes to church, and Gita goes to,
David may be Muslim also.
Absolutely. And so
have no religion.
or have no religion, or go to the Buddhist temple. I mean, why would a name represent a religion? Yeah.
But this unconscious bias constantly in our system. But the thing to me that gets me is that people don't even want to be open enough to like talk about it. So you're immediately, like if you say something, you're immediately labeled as being anti-system, anti-establishment, anti-religion, anti-whatever, and then you can't say anything, or you're told to just, like shut up, sit down. And that's my thing with schools, right? Schools teach us to, like, generally speaking, to shut up, to sit down, to step back, when they should teach us to speak up, to stand up, and to step forward.
But okay, yes, speak up, step forward. But I think you have to teach kids to have right intentions. Speak up with the right intention. Don't just speak up because you feel like, I have to I just have to say something, Yeah.
Yeah, but in this way, when you teach children's rights, right? You have this whole international convention on the rights of a child. Every child has a right to play, the right to be a child. When you teach children, and we've done this, when you teach them their rights as children, rights come with responsibilities. Yes. No one just teaches you, these are all your rights, and this is everything the world owes you. Yeah, it comes with responsibilities, that these are your responsibilities to how you use your rights, and if you don't do that, they could be taken away. Right? So, and that's parenting. That's also the role of schools.
That's what I teach my kids. I say, whatever choice and decision you make, you must be able to live with the consequences. If you feel that at that point you're going to make that decision that you cannot handle what may come out of this, just don't do it. I'm sorry. If you're not willing to handle, then don't do it. But if you at that moment decide and you think like, I think I want to try and see if I can handle it.
The consequences, accountability is such a huge aspect of upbringing, right? But now, but we have to look at society once again. Yeah. Do we have accountability of our politicians? Do we have accountability for people to say certain things?
For what? Precisely. If you can say things in Parliament, if you say things, and as a person of authority, and you get away with it. What more for the average?
That one is a whole different show already. Yeah. Okay, last question before Sophia waves the thing again. I really feel the need for more women leaders, But how can we help women or girls actually want to be in those positions? Maybe we just go around, everyone say something, and then
I'll start. So I realized that in this topic of women leaders, I've been going back to policy, I've been going back to society, and I think it stems from that. I don't think women leaders need to be supported by women only. They need to be supported by men and women. And there needs to be a shift in society, in policy, in education, that when we start talking to women, we start talking to men, not only do we support women, but we also support men in the right way. I mean, there's so many words, not words, but this word of toxic masculinity comes about. Yes. And someone like Brené Brown has really touched on it. And she talks about how men are expected to win. But women, it's okay, keep trying, And when the men don't win, what happens, right? And at the same time, how do we support women where we also tell them, you can win too? And so I think, how do we create more women leaders? We create a better society. That's how I look at it.
Yes to everything Sarah just said. And I would put it down to, since she said all of that, I put it down to individuals. Individuals out there, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, everyone is in a position to make an impact. And this comes back to the idea of the power of one. Whatever you do in life, you have the ability to be able to speak to a woman, interact with a woman, communicate with someone that makes them believe that they can do something, that makes them believe that they have the value to go on to achieve something, to do something. And I think we need to champion each other in that way. And so whether it's the office, at home, schools, take it upon yourself to small things, small efforts, because it's not something that's going to happen overnight. This is something that's going to take, it's a generational thing as well, but we need to start somewhere. And I think on one hand, it is policy that's going to be the thing that's going to bring about that massive shift. And I think even for NGO work, non-profit work, at the end of the day, policy is what really holds things. But at the end of but also individuals have that power, and don't sit there always waiting for the bigger something like da-da that comes from up above to pave the way. You can do it today.
So to add on to what they said, which I completely agree, policy changes, education. I think the other thing is like what Deborah said, society. I think we play a huge role as individuals to empower each other to do better and just to do us, do what we can to make a change in each other's lives as a woman or even as a man. And more importantly, I think we need to start removing labels.
And listen.
Recently, they have big issue with this
label. We all do. And listen to your children. I mean, going back to schools, that's the feeder system to our country.
Yeah, exactly.
Ask them what they feel. Ask them what they think. Girls and boys, don't just come down on them with punishment. We love punishing for everything.
Yeah.
Punishment does not change the outcome. We've got to move away from this fear and really start talking and what happened, asking them. And I really think people need to do that.
Yeah.
We're not doing enough of that in our schools and where we have the opportunity.
Okay, so I'm just going to say something that I've thought about a lot in the recent months. I think Deborah knows I mentioned this a bit in one of the things. I think that we need to find ways where we can embrace more women in politics, therefore encouraging our girls, if they are willing to speak up, to encourage them to be part of politics, because then only can policy changes happen. I think that representation has to happen. It may not happen right away, but if your daughter or son, who you feel can bring change and make policy better for the nation, do encourage them. People say politics, dirty place, dirty politics, but who's going to change it if we don't encourage more new people, young youth to get in and change from this notion of dirty politics to just politics that make a difference, that bring good change to the nation. So I do feel moms, dads, don't always just push for your kids to have very idealistic careers, traditional professions, because I feel that kids are so knowledgeable today.
Yes.
What knowledge can't they get access to? So maybe it's time for us to just guide them in the right direction. If we are yelling and constantly debating and talking and opening conversations about change and policy and education, I hope that come 5-10 years down the road we don't have to talk about this, and it's just a way of life and we all practice it as a society. So having said all that, thank you so much, ladies, for joining me. I hope you had a great conversation. Do feel free to come back. I think there's a lot more that we can talk about when it comes to women or men, because maybe it's time that I talk about empowering men, because like Sarah said, what happens to the guys that don't win? How do they feel? We don't know, right? Because maybe need to ask already that question. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for joining me. See you guys. Thanks for joining us.